Thank you for tuning in today. This is the Your Mount Rushmore book tag. This tag will explore the authors of your choosing within your favorite genre. Which authors will make up your bookish Mount Rushmore? Before we start, tag 2 booktubers that you follow who exclusively or almost exclusively booktube in just 1 or 2 genres. So I'm going to start with Rachel at Kalandai. She does a lot of science fiction, some fantasy, but really mostly science fiction. And then I'm also going to tag Odyssey. Really great channel. So I'm tagging both of these individuals. He really does a lot of science fiction too. So check out both of them. I'm going to also tag Rachel for my last tag that I did, which was the Around the World in 80 Pages book tag. Also, because I think that she probably has some really good answers for that, and I really meant to tag her on that one as well. So I'm going to get a 2-for-1 double tag on Rachel from Kalandai. Now let's get bookish with it. 1A. Within a genre of your choosing, which authors are on your all-time Mount Rushmore? Alright, this being Mount Rushmore and I only get 4 heads to work with, I'm obviously going to start with Isaac Asimov. I'm going to get Ursula Le Guin on there, Ray Bradbury, and then my sort of controversial va-va-voom pick is going to be Greg Egan. So I've got Asimov on there, you know, author of the Foundation series, the Robot series, these series and books that influenced so much that came after it. These are legendary choices. We've got Ursula Le Guin, author of The Dispossessed and The Left Hand of Darkness, among others. Those are my favorites of her titles. Then we've got Greg Egan, who is the master of hard science fiction. I've spoken a lot about Dichronauts on this channel, Permutation City, Shield's Ladder, Diaspora, and Tyrannacia, Incandescence. Really wonderful author, more modern, obviously, than the others on my list. And then we've also got Ray Bradbury, author of the legendary classic The Martian Chronicles, The Illustrated Man, and then a lot of his stuff isn't just strictly science fiction, it veers a little bit into fantasy. I read Something Wicked This Way Comes, which does not at all categorize as science fiction, but it was a book that really just blew me away and I really loved it. So he's going on my mountain as well. 1B. Did you base your choices off of your favorite authors that you feel are giants or most legendary or impactful in a specific genre, deceased or not deceased, or some other criteria? And why? So I just went with my favorites. I thought that was going to be the easiest for me to do, and I knew that I wanted to have right away Asimov, Le Guin, and Bradbury. And then I had to think about Egan because he's not as well known, but it's an author that I really enjoy. I could have extended and gotten Lem and Banks, Alistair Reynolds, who I've been really enjoying reading lately, Philip K. Dick, but I kept it to 4, and those are the 4 that I'm going to stick with. 2A. George Washington is the big dog on the mountain. He was the first United States president, and of course he was the most legendary. Which of your selections falls into this slot? So again, I'm going to go with Isaac Asimov. Of the ones I put on the mountain, he is the most legendary. The Robot series influenced so many of the things that came after it, from Philip K. Dick's work with Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Ian M. Banks and the Culture series. You can throw in recent things like Clara and the Sun, and so many other ones that I'm probably not even thinking about. You've got Star Trek from Data, Blade Runner, which again is also based off of the Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. The Foundation series, so much has come from that. You've got Dune, which was sort of a response to that, and Star Wars and things like that. They all can find roots in Foundation, so Isaac Asimov is just a legendary writer. What he did with the Foundation series is just a literary accomplishment, and I love all of his stuff, and there's still more of it to read. He's such a prolific author. 2B. Respectfully, I'm not going to ask anyone to rank booktubers, but I'll pose it from the legendary to you or longevity angle. Who are 4 of the original channels that you watched since you began watching Booktube? So just kind of, if you can't think of exactly the 4, you can kind of fudge with this a little bit. Again, I don't always play by the rules. You don't have to either. These folks who you list now, you can consider them all to be tagged by you on this video. First for me is Quinn from Quinn's Ideas. I found him right away. As soon as I was even aware of Booktube, I went on and I was looking for things for Foundation, for Dune, for Hyperion. Like those were actually Hyperion, surprisingly, was the first thing I looked for. And of course I came upon Quinn's content. It's incredible. there's nowhere else to go. Like, I'm even, like, I want to talk about all those books, and I will, but I'm not going to, like, branch out into a lot of different topics on them, because if you want to look at Hyperion, Foundation, Dune, the world of Dune, all things related to Dune, just go to Quinn's channel, because he's done it all, and he's done it better than anybody else is going to do it. That's the place to go. Next, I'm going to go with Aoife from Words of Clover. This is her. Take a look. I found her channel because I saw something about bisexual book recommendations when I was first booktubing, and that wasn't necessarily what I was looking for, but I was interested in LGBTQ plus content, so that was a first stop for me. And even though that wasn't one I watched a lot of at first, over time I've watched more. It's one of the first ones that I do absolutely remember watching, and it's a really great channel. I suggest checking it out. Next is Kayla at BooksandLala. And frankly, I found her channel because when I was looking into Booktube and I didn't know it existed, and then I found it, she was probably one of the more popular booktubers, so her stuff came up when I was doing those searches. I checked it out, and as a lot of you know, because I'm sure you probably watch her channel, highly entertaining, fun, wild personality, really interesting, and really unique content too. I'm going to tag and mention also Joel at Fictional Tales right here. And Joel I found because this is sort of a cheat because he wasn't one of the first ones I found, but I'm going to kind of draw it together. I did the Booktube newbie tag pretty late in the game. I was already in a few months and have already seen a few Booktubers, but I didn't know about that tag. So when I found out about that tag and I looked it up, if you look it up now, I think you're going to see that he's probably like the first one that comes up for most people because so many people watched that video, and it's a really great one, and it's a really great introduction to him. And I'm sure that's why his channel grew so big, because man, making a first impression, that's what he did. And it's a really great channel. So I'm going to suggest people, if you're not checking out his channel already, please take a look.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel.
Now I just said 4, but as I mentioned before with tags, I like to break the rules, and I'm going to do that right now because I have to mention my friend Russell at Ink and Paper blog. I love when I watch Russell's videos. I do mostly science fiction, and it's very hard for me to put anything else on my TBR, but every time I watch a video by Russell, there's like 4 or 5 things on his list of 10 that I'm like, I've got to read these books, and they're not science fiction, but I keep, and I tell him to us, oh, this is going to go on the TBR, and what that means is I'm going to read it in like 2 or 3 years, but it is on that list, and I'm not going to forget these books. But he does such a great job of delivering the reviews of these books, and he's picking good books, so they've got to get on my bookshelf. So they'll get on my bookshelves. I'll order them, and I've done that. I've ordered some of the books knowing I'm not going to read them for a long time, but I know if they're back on the bookshelf, I'm going to get to them sometime. Maybe when I'm old and gray, I don't know, but I'll get to them. I'm squeezing just one more in here, and it's got to be Tori Morrow. She did a video on sci-fi subgenres, and I saw that because, you know, again, like Quinn, I had to look up the sci-fi stuff, of course. So I looked up her channel. Well, I didn't look up her channel. I looked up sci-fi stuff, and then she had done one on ranking subgenres or talking about subgenres, and that one stuck with me, and then I've been watching her ever since. Her channel is really great. Give her a look. I think you're going to really love her content too. 3A. Who is your Teddy Roosevelt? The one that carries a big stick, clubs you over the head with mind-blowing storytelling, ideas, suspense, or gives you a headache with difficult yet enjoyable writing. Now, I should mention these don't necessarily have to be from the original 4 that you put on the mountain, but I'm kind of going that route right now. So I'm going with Greg Egan. This was the obvious one for me. I think it's what inspired me to write the question. His stuff is so good, it's hard for me to recommend Greg Egan to people, even though I love his stuff so much, because I know it's a very interesting taste. And it's not because I can even understand his stuff all the time. Some of the stuff I just can't grasp the geometry and the advanced calculus or trigonometry of it. And it's okay because I just really like the story. And there's something about the struggle. And I don't generally like to have struggles in my reading, but with science fiction, you accept it a little bit. With Greg Egan science fiction, you just have to acknowledge you're not going to know necessarily every single thing that's going on. You're not going to be able to keep up with the author on everything that's going on. And it's okay. If you're like me and you don't mind that challenge, you're going to get some of it, but you're also going to get a story. Now, for some, the characters and the stories might not make up for that other part, but for me, the blend of it is just perfect. Having a little bit of fun with this, 3B now, we're talking about Booktube. Tag a booktuber who has an over-the-top personality or very strong opinions on books or bookish topics. Or just, you think they might hit you over the head with a big stick. So the first one fits the bill on all those accounts. I'm going to go with Larry Has Opinions. If you haven't watched Larry's channel, check it out. Larry's got a great personality. He's really funny. I also like that he's funny in a way that sort of matches my personality too. I really like Larry a lot. It really brings joy to my day when I watch videos that are done by Larry. Also bringing joy to my day when I watch a video by this booktuber is Jess at the Bookish Mom. Jess is funny, she's witty, she watches a little, she reads a little bit of science fiction, but really reads a lot of fantasy. And I actually watch a lot of fantasy booktubers. I'm living my literary fantasy genre stuff vicariously through the fantasy booktubers like Philip Chase, Books with Mike, Books with Brittany, Bookish Mom, and others. But Jess really cracks me up. Sometimes I'll watch her, and she just has this over-the-top personality in a really positive and good way, and it gives me a laugh. Even like if I'm like about to film, and I've told her this before, and I haven't told her in a while, but sometimes if I'm about to film and I'm not in the right mood for it, I'll watch like 10 minutes of one of her videos, and I just start sort of laughing, and I get real comfortable. And that's a really great talent and also an element of her personality. So I really appreciate the book channel, The Bookish Mom. Back to the mountain, 4A, Abraham Lincoln, an author who passed too early or you wished was still cranking out new incredible writing. So my obvious one for my mountain that I already mentioned was Ray Bradbury. There's so many things that I read that are good, and I think in my head, if only had Ray Bradbury done the prose for this, this would be a perfect 5-star book. He just has a way of writing, it's just beautiful. I wish I would have thought before doing this tag to take out a couple samples and throw them into this tag just so people who haven't read Bradbury get a little bit of a taste of the wonderful poetic prose that he puts forth. And the other one is Ian M. Banks, who passed too soon, who passed recently. Well, not too recently, but recently enough, more recently than Ray Bradbury. And boy, wouldn't it be great if he was still writing culture novels? 4B, I don't want to be morbid, so I'm going to put the Abraham Lincoln link this way. You may have to look this up a little bit here, but tag one booktuber from the north and one from the south, so Civil War reference, then let's make them battle. Just kidding, let's just tag them. I'm going to go with Connor Stompanato. He's from Glasgow, Scotland, so that's going to qualify as my north. Connor has really cool content. I like the vibe of his videos because he's never just in one place, and it actually keeps it really fresh. And it could just be going from one room to another, but I really like watching his channel.
What's up? I'm here in London, and I thought to keep things bookish.
Next, I'm going to go with Nichi with Dark Between Pages. Nichi is from Canada, so she's also going to be from the north. So this is another cheat. I'm going with 2 from the north, which is going to be tough for Chronicles of Noria because she's from Lagos, Nigeria, and that is going to be my representation for the south. So 2 against 1. Good thing we're just doing a tag.
We could have made this last forever, and now who's gonna dance with me, baby?
Number 5, Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson is a problematic historical figure. He's been riding high for decades as a revered founding father, but as a more mature society acknowledges his terrible record with slavery and abuse, the jig is up for him. Can you think of a book or an author that was or is revered that's not worthy of the status that they enjoy? I went with Orson Scott Card. I've spoken about Card before. He is virulently homophobic. I don't think he is a good person. He has worked against equality and equal rights for homosexuals and the LGBTQ community. Ender's Game, written by Orson Scott Card. Speaker for the Dead, written by Orson Scott Card. Xenocide, Shadow of the Hegemon, Ender's Shadow are all fantastic science fiction novels. Some of the best that have ever been written. It doesn't change the fact that he is, and I'm going to try not to use the word problematic too much because that is getting overused, but he is an author who I do not care for as a person. The art, however, speaks for itself. I don't believe that when you put something out like Ender's Game and it's been out there and we've digested it and some of us have loved it and we read it before we knew who the author was, maybe wouldn't have read it otherwise, that art is its own thing. I don't believe Ender's Game is Orson Scott Card's anymore. Maybe legally and all that it is. But that story, whatever it is in my brain, I control that, and it has nothing to do with him anymore. Ender Wiggin is a character. He's a character that I know, and he is nothing like Orson Scott Card. There's no part B to that one, so we're going to go to 6A. Sacagawea, or the Fifth Head. Historians and tribal leaders wanted the design of the mountain to feature Sacagawea and other pioneers and Western heroes. Who is an author that you love to read in a genre other than the one you went with for question 1? I'm going to go with Dr. Nnedi Okorafor. I love Okorafor's writing. She is a fantastic writer. She's another one like Bradbury. Not at all like Bradbury, but she's another one like him to me in that I feel like she could write anything, and I'm going to love it just because of her style of writing and the way she describes things. I'm going to make a little plug for Remote Control, which is a novella. And this is just one part of it, but the writing is like this throughout. But there's a part where she's talking about a gun firing and how the smoke comes off the barrel of the gun. It's just so wonderfully written. And again, there are books that I've read like, oh, I would love to see like a Nnedi Okorafor spin on this. And this is a bit of a cheat, I'm calling it, because she does write in science fiction, which is the genre I'm really talking about. But she also writes in fantasy too. So that's sort of my cheat. She's writing in another genre because she's also writing in fantasy. How about this for 6B? Name a booktuber that you follow who not only booktubes, but also writes or is an author or vice versa, or has other art skills, talents, or habits that are considered artistic. So consider this person to also be tagged by you, and then also, if you can, blurb one of their books or their writings or their art or something that they've done if it's applicable. So I'm going to start with Pavlov At Attention. He is also an author. His channel is great. You're going to love, he does some really cool editings with 3 different versions of himself, and I really like it. But he's also an author, and he wrote Searching for Marilyn Monroe. It's a philosophical and insightful collection of short stories. I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm trying to find a copy of it. I think all of the copies of the paperback have probably sold out, and there's probably an audiobook, but I don't really do audiobooks because I can't, my mind wanders too much. Great for those who do them. I just can't personally do them, so I'm looking forward to getting to that, but take a look at it because I looked at some of the reviews on it and people really kind of rave about the quality of the writing, and just knowing the quality of the content he puts out, I wouldn't be surprised if it's really wonderful. So I'm also going to mention Crystal at Fiberartsy. She does cross-stitching, which obviously is not writing, but it is an artistic pursuit, and she does really great cross-stitching work. You can probably check out some of that on her channel. Well, you can check that out on her channel, and I suggest that you do so. So take a look at that. I'm also going to tag this very little known booktuber called Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson, for those who don't know, is an author, but also a booktuber. Instead of blurbing, I'll just say that if he miraculously does this tag, I'm going to immediately detour from my science fiction TBR and finally read through the Mistborn trilogy. I just can't find time to put the fantasy stuff that I want to read, like Mistborn, Gideon the Ninth, and some other stuff. I can't get them in there because I got to read all my science fiction stuff. But that would be one way to get me to do it. Now that we've made it to the end of the Mount Rushmore tag, I like to end these original tags with tag challenges. So I'm going to start with tag challenge number 1, which is tag 2 channels that you're just starting to get into, or you're starting to pay a little bit more of attention to, or you're planning to look at. I'm going to start with Brendan Reads. Brendan does a lot of Stephen King reviews, and I like that because that's an author that I've read before, mostly try to stay in his science fiction or science fiction fantasy stuff. I recently did my 150 top science fiction reads, and I had quite a few from, well, not quite a few, but I think I had 3 novels probably from Stephen King in there. The Running Man, which he did under the name Richard Brockman, his pen name that he at one point used. And I had The Stand in there, and I think I also had Under the Dome. But there's some stuff that I really want to watch, and a lot of folks have been live streaming around his. There's the Kennedy assassination one, and I actually have that on the shelf. And I don't like to mention it because I always get the date wrong. It's 11, blah, 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 63, whatever. I want to read that one. There's a few other ones that I really want to get into too. So I really liked watching his channel, and that's a good place to stop and get a lot of good Stephen King stuff. And I've been following Brendan for a little bit of a while. I haven't watched a lot of his stuff though. the stuff that I watch, I like. It's just I watch so much other fantasy stuff too that it's hard to fit everybody in, but I'm really starting to pay more attention to that channel. And by the same token, I want to mention The Love of Reading. This is another channel with a lot of Stephen King content. So between these two channels, if you're interested in Stephen King and you want to digest all the King stuff you can get, these are the two channels to look at. Well, this here is The Love of Reading. The other one is Brandon, and we'll just put him back here, give him a little bit more screen time in this tag. The last one for this particular tag challenge, I'm going to go with Niko's Book Reviews. This is mostly fantasy, and again, I know I follow a lot of fantasy, and I just, I get this vicariously through these booktubers. That's how I get my fantasy fix until I start actually picking up these great fantasy books and start reading them. I'm going to get it through all of these great YouTube channels. So I've been watching this one actually for a while off and on too. And again, like I can only fit so much fantasy in, so it has to hit me on the subscription feed. All these people are on my subscription feed, and I always jump in and hit the like and I'll be honest, I let it run because I don't want to jump into somebody's video and find out I don't have time, and then I jump out and then I only watched 30 seconds of the video, and I don't know how that works with the algorithm, but so I'm going to let it run. So sometimes the intention is if I click on it, I'm going to watch it, but if something comes up, I'm very busy, I might forget to go back to it. But I do always let it run, and I always make sure that I click the like button, which is a good reminder to everybody watching. Click the like button on this. If you like me at all, if you like my channel, if you want to help my channel, click the subscribe button and the notification bell also. And then we get tag challenge number 2. I'm not going to get too carried away with these tags today. Tag challenge number 2. Tag 2 channels that you've tagged previously that you think will enjoy this tag, this Mount Rushmore tag. I'm going to go with Steve Donogue and Hugo at Scientists Reading World. So I'm going to go back here, give a little space. I'm going to get both of them up here. Steve has got a great personality. He really puts a lot into the reviews he does, and he cares about the things that he reviews. He takes it very, very seriously, but also still has a lot of fun with it. And Hugo has just such a sweet personality. Somebody I've been really, happy and appreciative to have become friends with over the Booktube journey, and really love his channel. Does a lot of, reads a lot of things that I don't read too. And again, I do watch science fiction channels because it's the stuff that I like, but then I also watch things that I don't read. And it's so important to do that, I think, because there are genres that I'm just not familiar with that I watch them enough and I'm like, I want to read this stuff. And then I find stuff that I really love. If you read all in the same genre, like I do a lot, I've read all the things that I think are the greatest. It's going to be hard for me to find the greatest science fiction book that I haven't read yet because I've read so many great ones that they're going to be compared to. When you go into a new genre and you go into like consensus, this is the best of the genre, like what's the foundation of fantasy? What's the iRobot? What's the Dune? What's the Hyperion of fantasy? I haven't read those yet. Wow, how lucky am I? I get to experience those for the first time. Just like I think people who have read Mistborn or Malazan or all of those things that are well regarded in fantasy, they've already read those things and a lot of other things. It's going to be hard to really like impress people in that genre. So if they maybe go over to science fiction and they look at Foundation and iRobot and Martian Chronicles and Left Hand of Darkness and some of those great, massive, wonderful science fiction books, they've got all that ahead of them, which I don't, because I will reread them, but I can't have that first experience again. So long story short, that's why I look at a lot of channels that are not science fiction. It could be, I don't watch a lot of romance, but it could be romance. It could be YA. It could be horror. It could be nonfiction. There's so many great things out there, so I'm going to keep my eyes open and watch all of that. And sticking with the spirit of this tag challenge, I'm also going to mention Noah at Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse. I love this channel. This is one of my, there's a few channels that I really, really love to do, to watch their live streams. And I'm not going to name all of them, but I'm going to mention Beautifully Bookish Bethany because she always puts up premieres, so it's sort of like a live stream, and it always works for me time-wise, and I love her stuff. She does statistics and charts. I'm there for that. Noah is just like, I love to be there. I love feeling like I'm hanging out with my buddies. He has such great insights into the things that he reads. He's very, is ethereal the right word? I don't know. He has just something about his personality that's so welcoming, so charming. And I feel very positive when I'm in that space. But I also know that he was recently talking about tags. I wrote a note here and it says we talked about tags once. And now I can't, it's been so long since I took that note. I don't remember when we were talking about tags, but the fact that we were talking about tags, I'm going to say that in the spirit of this particular tag challenge, somebody who might like this tag, I'm going to put him on here. And he's somebody who I really would love to hear. Who are your Mount Rushmore people? And all the people that I tagged, and like, there's like 100 people that I watch, and I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to know who their top 5 are. I didn't tag Mike's from Mike's Book Reviews or Moyd from Media Death Cult. I watch his channel a lot, so I could probably guess. I didn't tag them, but those are, I'm just thinking in my head, Books with Brittany, didn't tag her. Those are all people I'd love to hear their lists for this too. So everybody who's tagged on this video, I really hope they do it, because I think this is one of those tags where, oh man, I really want to hear every single answer to these questions. I'm going to now end this whole shebang with a bonus tag challenge, because I really want to tag James Nutter from the Fantasy Nutwork. I watch a lot of, this is another one, I watch a lot of the live streams. He really has great guests. There's sort of like this clique. I don't want to say clique because that's used with a negative connotation. It's not a clique, but there's a group of fantasy booktubers who seem to really get along really well and collaborate really well. Johanna, Leanne's Library, Beautifully Bookish Bethany, Library of Alexandria, James Nutter, I think, I can't remember some of the, but those are the ones that first come to mind. But I was watching recently and they were doing a talk about Stephen King, and again, more King stuff. This was recently, and James was talking about, or Jimmy was talking about some of his favorites, and he mentioned Erickson, Hobb, Tad Williams, and it just got me thinking, okay, he's got to do this tag, because I was already working on this tag when this happened. This was actually a pretty recent live stream that we're doing. So James, you're tagged on this as well. Great channel. This might be the award for best speaking voice, cadence, and tone for a booktuber. This is a guy with a voice that was made for radio and for Booktube. Really interesting content. If you're not checking him out already, please check out the Fantasy Nutwork. And Fantasy Nutwork, James, Jimmy, please consider yourself tagged, and please do this tag. I'd love to see your answers. I want to know who your Mount Rushmore authors are.
And I loved it.
Thank you for watching today. I'm Michael Leverts. This is Fit to be Read. Please like, please subscribe, please click on the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every Thursday at 1 o'clock when I release new content. Thank you.